The Two Idiots Podcast.
Hello, is this working? Okay, it looks like it fixed itself.
Okay,
Just
so
don't touch it.
I think it was because you had the cable wrapped around the arm.
Oh, okay.
I'm no computer scientist, but I think maybe that was breaking it.
Maybe.
Anyway, do you want to do the intro today, or should I?
I can do the intro, I guess.
All right, that's great. Welcome back to the Two Idiots Podcast. This is a special anniversary episode, isn't it?
Oh, very special.
As always, I'm your host, Buttsmaster666.
And I'm your not host, Pizza2020 Pizza.
Also, should we check this audio, or are we just gonna roll with it?
Do what you want.
It looks fine, right?
Yeah, let's just go for it.
All right, so what are we doing today, Mr. Pizza Man?
Well, we were just reading stuff we wrote earlier because we didn't have an idea, so we're going to use our past self's creativity now.
That's right. So, to explain, sometimes we both write things. Sometimes they're good.
Most likely they're not.
I think they're pretty good. Let's be positive.
That's true, yeah.
I got an A on it.
That's true. Both of these were just written for class, so, we got some mandatory creativity going on here.
Yeah. So what we're gonna do is basically audiobook a couple of these short stories we've written. Actually, I think mine are too short to hit the cutoff for short story. I think, or maybe I'm confusing myself. But either way, so the first one is one that I have written. It's called Heroes. It was for a creative writing class I had. Basically, in the class, over the course of the class, I had to write 3 stories. I wrote the first one. And then I was completely out of ideas, so I stole an idea that we had come up with together, forever ago?
Yeah, I don't know. We had Minecraft skins based off it, so if that tells you how long ago this was.
Well, I made a Dr. Jenkins Minecraft skin last week, though, so that doesn't actually help.
Oh, okay.
So, you ready to get started?
I've never been more ready. What
right.
character am I? I'm not ready.
Would you like to, who would you like to voice?
I think I can do a good Captain Obvious voice.
Right. How lovely to see you again, Captain! Carl Snyder cackled from atop the metal walkway. He didn't mean it. I've already screwed up. It's been the first line. This is going to be great.
All right, let's keep going. I don't think this situation is lovely at all.
Captain Obvious replied from below.
I have been tied to a conveyor belt and am slowly moving towards a spinning saw blade.
How sharp of you to notice! Carl immediately regretted the wordplay. I certainly hope you managed to escape.
I don't think you do.
Captain Obvious continued inching toward the saw.
You are my archenemy, Commander Sarcasm. You have been sticking me, Captain Obvious, into death traps ever since I moved in the apartment below yours.
Hey, check out the audio levels right here. Did I screw that up? Is that going to be a disaster?
We'll find out later.
I did accidentally knock these headphones onto this wire. So
we'll get Codwell to fix it if it's a problem. Yeah,
I'll just dub in Codwell. I was going to dub him in later anyway. He's going to voice one of the characters. So.
Yeah, he is returning.
I was trying to... This is fine.
We need to be very careful with these mics, because one of them, if you touch it the wrong way, it stops working.
I can't imagine doing anything like that! Carl laughed some more. Suddenly, a huge crash came from just outside the warehouse. Carl rushed to the window, leaving his foe to his fate, and saw a giant robot outside. It was attacking a large group of superheroes, and seemed to be winning. Carl recognized the whirlwind near the front of the group. She spun around and threw a small tornado at the robot. The robot saw this, began spinning, and responded with its own much larger tornado, which swept the whirlwind and several other heroes away. Laser Larry, which is my favorite superhero name in this whole thing. Laser Larry. Laser Larry snuck up behind the robot and tried to shoot it with a laser beam. Because that's what he does. But the robot noticed the attack. It returned fire with a volley of its own lasers, then continued storming down the street. Carl realized it was headed in the direction of his apartment building. Wonderful. Carl turned back to his death trap and saw Captain Obvious standing on the walkway with him.
I escaped,
said Captain Obvious. Okay, that joke got me.
It's been a while since we read these, so...
This day just keeps getting better. The two prepared to fight, but were interrupted when the robot punched through the wall of the warehouse, causing the walkway to collapse. The robot punched the warehouse again, shaking the entire building. Carl dragged himself to his feet and bolted out of the warehouse before the robot brought the whole building down. I didn't think these lines through. The nearest escape route was, unfortunately, the hole made by the robot. Carl had just reached the street when he realized he was now directly in front of the enormous machine. Carl looked around. Rubble and defeated heroes lined the street. Carl grabbed a rock and flung it at the robot. The rock bounced off its metal plating without even creating a dent. Okay, so the robot talks. I'm going to dub in Codwell later to be the robot.
You're going to have some fun time editing this one.
I think the robot only gets like 3 lines.
Oh, good effort on that one, Commander Sarcasm.
The robot's voice was loud and obviously synthesized. Like I was genuinely thinking of Codwell's voice when I wrote this. Carl was surprised the robot had a voice at all. The robot hesitated for a moment, as if surprised as well, then swung a gigantic metal fist at Carl. Carl leapt backwards to avoid it, but was unable to avoid the second fist that immediately followed. He was sent flying across the street into a nearby building and collapsed along with the wall into a pile of rubble. He grunted incoherently as things began to fade to black.
You are lying in a pile of rubble, Commander Sarcasm,
said a familiar voice.
Would you like assistance?
Carl slowly opened his eyes to see Captain Obvious extending his hand. Carl stayed where he was. I'm feeling great, thanks. Captain Obvious returned his hand to his side.
I have discovered that the robot can copy the powers of those it is fighting.
How'd you figure that one out?
It told me itself. It then flung me into a nearby wall. We need to stop that robot. If it reaches our apartment building, neither of us will have a place to live anymore.
What's this we stuff? Carl rolled his eyes. You know I'm all about teamwork.
Neither of us can defeat the robot on our own. My power is that I must state the obvious. Your power is similar in nature, but opposite in effect. Typically, our powers are not very effective in combat. Combined, however, they may be enough to confuse the robot.
Fantastic plan, Captain. Carl struggled to his feet.
I'm not hearing any better options.
It was true. Carl couldn't come up with any better ideas. He clambered down the pile of rubble and joined Captain Obvious in walking down the street. The path the robot had taken was clear from the destroyed buildings, unconscious bodies, and potholes it left behind. Despite its size, the robot was apparently taking its time, and the two were able to catch up to it. Their apartment building was just a few blocks away.
We don't have much time.
Captain Obvious looked around for a way to get the robot's attention. Carl grabbed another rock and chucked it at the machine. Again, it bounced off harmlessly. The robot rotated in place to face the pair.
You lot again. Let me tell ya, I'm real scared now.
The robot paused, then added,
I'm not scared of you two at all. You pose no threat.
The robot slammed its fist into the ground, creating a huge crater. Carl and Captain Obvious leapt aside just in time.
Don't get hit.
Captain Obvious said. Thanks, Carl replied.
I meant to do that.
The robot picked its fist back up, then attacked again. Another miss.
Targeting system functioning improperly. Targeting system work straight.
A strange noise came from inside the robot.
Attack mode changed.
The robot leapt high into the air. Carl and Captain Obvious ran to the end of the street as it came hurtling back down. The impact created a huge crater in the middle of the road, with the robot stuck inside. It grabbed the edge of the crater and began pulling itself out, revealing that its legs had been heavily damaged when it landed.
This is fine.
A louder noise came from inside the robot, suggesting the opposite.
It's working.
So is your audio, I think.
Yay!
Yes!
The audio's actually working.
I'm going to keep an eye on that because I'm real concerned about it.
I don't know how much this will get into the final thing, but this audio...
I'm not going to edit any of this out.
Oh, good.
And I might have to make you redub some lines.
So if some lines are very bad quality, you know why.
It's because the mic doesn't work.
It's working.
Captain Obvious pointed at the robot's damaged legs.
System integrity failing. System integrity fantastic.
This robot has more lines of dialogue than I thought. That's okay, though. It's worth it for Codwell. Small sparks began emanating. Why did I write that? Small sparks began emanating from the robot.
System status unknown.
The robot dragged itself out of the pit and again faced its opponents. It'd be great if we could make this take even longer, Carl said. The robot scooped up 2 handfuls of boulders from the nearby wreckage.
These are rocks,
it announced, then began launching them at Carl and Captain Obvious. They danced out of the way of the first few shots, but there were too many.
Rock!
Captain Obvious shouted, pushing Carl to the side. Captain Obvious was struck with a large boulder and fell to the ground. Carl was unharmed. Captain Obvious, now flat on the ground, groaned and pointed to the robot. Carl turned...
I was groaning.
Carl turned to it in time to see another punch coming and dodged out of the way. Here's my monologue part. Oh. What exactly do you want anyway? Carl shouted.
The mic broke again.
Dang it. Did you touch it or just do that?
I think I might have touched it. Is it working now? No.
No.
very still.
This might be a disaster.
We can always record this again next week.
That's true.
In a room that's not room D. Room D.
Yeah. Don't pick C either, because it has a pillar in it.
Okay. Okay, does this work? Oh, nope, it doesn't.
I mean, you're maxing out the audio levels on the thing there.
What about this? Okay, this is fun.
Are you sure?
Yeah.
Do you want to stand up? Would that be easier?
Maybe.
But now it's too short.
Actually, no, yeah. So I'm just going to sit in a profoundly awkward position.
I like the waveform my laugh makes. It's like...
Okay. Okay, this is perfect. All right. Where were we?
I don't know. Are you sure?
Yeah, no, legitimately, this isn't bad.
It looks really quiet, though. And I'm scared to stop recording.
What about if I do this?
It'll make more tracks.
Yeah, there we go.
Okay, yeah, if you could just sort of...
Okay, and then I need to not move for 2 hours.
If you can just do that for 2 hours.
Okay.
We good?
Yep.
All right. Keep an eye on it and just tell me if it stops again.
Okay, I will.
What exactly do you want, anyway? Carl shouted. He was forced to add, I'm sure it's just brilliant.
Purpose. Conquer planet.
A louder noise.
Purpose. Stand-up comedy.
It paused.
Purpose unknown.
Larger sparks. Carl was onto something. And what genius built you? The robot looked at its arm emblazoned with the logo of its creator.
Creator unknown.
And what amazing abilities do you have?
Abilities unknown.
A constant grinding sound began coming from the robot, as well as from our microphone, apparently. Do you even work at all? Carl was on a roll. The robot didn't answer. Sparks continued to shoot out of it, and the grinding got louder and louder. Lights on the robot began randomly flickering on and off.
Unknown.
It said finally. The grinding stopped, the sparking stopped, and the lights cut off. The robot fell to its knees and began toppling forward. Carl pumped a fist in the air, then remembered that Captain Obvious was still lying on the ground in front of the rapidly descending robot. He didn't have time to think. Before he knew it, he was sliding across the ground and pushing Captain Obvious out of the way. Side note, that sentence was really hard to write because of the weird verb tense. The robot landed on top of Carl, missing Captain Obvious by mere inches, and everything went black again. Carl again opened his eyes to see Captain Obvious in front of him. This time, instead of being in a pile of rubble, he was in a hospital bed. Everything hurt.
I brought you here after we defeated the robot.
Captain Obvious explained. He didn't look particularly uninjured either. Captain Obvious, Carl said, I can't stand you. He didn't mean it.
Hey, well, that was the story.
All right, that's the end. I think your mic is still working.
Yep, it is.
Editing this is still to be good.
Oh, this is going to be very fun to edit. Would you like to give a synopsis of the story in case there's some weird continuity errors?
Well, so one fun thing about this is one of the details we talked about in my class is that when you have multiple characters, you shouldn't have them start with the same letter.
But, you know.
I didn't do that right. I did all three of the names involved start with C. and the two important ones, Carl and Captain Obvious, would start with CA. But I got away with it because one's so much longer than the other, it's still pretty obvious who's who.
Yeah, generally, you know, you can kind of tell based on, like, Carl versus Captain Obvious.
Yeah. So I went ahead. Another problem I had with the first story I wrote for this class was that people were not too keen on the ending. They sort of felt like nothing had changed during it. So I was like, how can I make this like the most obvious as possible? Like the most like, boom, here's the ending, you know? And so I went for the it's repeated the first line, you know, to just like nail in like, look, it's the ending. I did it, guys.
Yeah. So this is kind of like, in our headcanon, we had very many different episodes planned out for this.
Oh, yeah.
This was kind of one of the last, or if not the last episode.
That's right. So the idea for this that we came up with ages ago is a sort of children's cartoon show about Commander Sarcasm, a.k.a. Carl Snyder, where he and Captain Obvious live in this world where everyone's a superhero, and these two idiots with no powers, or the most useless powers in the entire world, are the stars of the show. And so every episode there's like actual superheroes and supervillains doing stuff in the background, but it's just like Carl going to buy a sandwich or something.
Yeah, no, these literally their only powers is that Commander Sarcasm, Carl, has to be sarcastic, and Captain Obvious states the obvious. That's it.
And so we kind of had planned out the season opener and the season finale, and we didn't know the episodes in the middle yet. And so the season opener is the story of how Captain Obvious moves into the apartment below Carl's. This is all in the theme song. And then Carl doesn't like him because he wastes his time, so he builds a superpower machine and gives himself a superpower, and he gets the worst superpower. And that's the first episode. And so I didn't want to write that one because there's not really an ending to it. And again, that was one of the big problems with the first one I heard, was that there's no ending.
Mm-hmm.
And so there's not really an ending to that one, other than, okay, now he has a superpower that is useless. So the other one we had was the season finale, where the two had to work together for some reason and ended up not quite hating each other as much. Although, honestly, I don't feel like Captain Obvious hates Carl.
No, this seems like a very kind of one-sided annoyance relationship. I think Captain Obvious is oblivious.
Right, like he gets strapped into these death traps, but he always escapes, so it's like, I don't really mind. Something to do. I wasn't busy today. And so I chose to write this one instead, because the problem with it was it had no beginning. Or rather, the beginning of it was 25 other episodes of the season. So I just had to condense that all into a sentence.
Yeah.
But, yeah. I mean, what did you think? Does this work as a standalone?
I think it's good. It had to be hard to come up with a robot that any superpower to exist couldn't beat, but being obvious and being sarcastic could beat.
Yeah, was that an idea that we had together, or did I come up with that?
I think you came up with that one.
I do like robots, so that fits. I always like the idea of like a power copying like villain and how you beat that. There's a couple approaches, like using like conflicting powers or something or whatever, or just sort of another sort of way I like to see to like beat like a power copying robot is like someone with no powers or like with a bad power, like
Mm-hmm.
like
Especially if it multiplies like this robot seemed to.
Yeah, so the idea with this robot, like you said, is that it copies powers and makes them stronger. So if there was a guy whose power was like he could injure himself, the robot would like copy him and kill itself. But in this case, the thought was that like you saw they're sort of conflicting powers. The robot tried to copy both of them at the same time, and it's not able to do that.
Yeah.
I think though, honestly, like it would be able to copy, say, like a fire power and then like an ice power. I think it could do both. I don't think that would cause it a short circuit. I think it was like a logical paradox it was creating.
In my mind, the problem is that both the powers are mandatory. Captain Obvious can't turn off his obviousness, and neither can Carl Snyder. You wrote that in there. You said he was forced to add.
Right, that's true. I'm glad you caught that because it's they're not allowed to not follow their power. They have to do this.
Right. And that's why the robot had to follow both at the same time, but couldn't. And then it just...
Yeah, and so it like sort of short circuits itself, and then yeah. So I don't know. I got an A on this story.
Yeah, I was gonna. How was this received in class?
Actually, really well. I was really surprised because for one, there was one guy in class who specifically said he hated superhero stuff, and I wrote this anyway. And two, pretty much I was the only one in that class writing for comedy purposes. People seemed to like it though. It was cool. Yeah.
Oh man, I just had a flash. I saw you hit your mic, and I was like, "Oh no, it's gonna break everything." But that's your mic is fine.
Yeah,
it's just my mic that can't hit anything.
That's why we switched because you didn't trust me with the bad one. Are you still picking up?
Yeah, I'm still good.
Okay. I think I'm louder than you, but I can fix that in post.
Yeah.
Also, I keep turning this way to look at you, and I don't know how well that picks up.
Well, is there any more developer commentary? Again, you were the one who wrote this, Old Butts.
I'm trying to think about if there's anything else that I wanted to mention about this one. Do you have any takes on it? Like the first time you read it, what do you think?
I thought it was good. Like I said, this was a very comedy-heavy idea we had, so it was kind of cool to actually see, like, at least some seriousness being put in, right? Like, it was an actual fight. People actually got hurt. There was an actual moral. I thought it was really cool just seeing, change, but, like, through comedy, right? You don't have to necessarily have a super serious story if you want to have any serious points to it.
Yeah, I like how you said that because I do get sort of bogged down when stuff tries to be all serious. It's like I don't want that. So I like trying to show that you can still tell a good story and have it be fun the whole time. You don't have to make it all edgy and stuff.
Yeah.
Well, do you want to do the next one?
I guess we can. So this is the one that I wrote. I'll introduce you. It's called Portfolio Draft V2.0. So the backstory behind this is this was written for a calculus class. we had a final project, and we had to write, or no, we didn't have to write something that tied a bunch of different concepts in calculus together. We just had to make something that tied it together. So a sane person might have, like, made a presentation that showed how concepts link together, or, some sort of just like some person made a website that you could click on and then get tutorials on calculus stuff. Me being stupid, I'm like, what if I made a detective mystery where the main character loved calculus and just used calculus to solve all of his problems?
How do I bigify this? I want to make it a little bigger.
Try Control Plus.
I'm worried they'll mess up Audacity.
Oh no. Do you see the 100% below the insert?
No.
Insert, and then below that is 100%. Try making that like 200%. Oh yeah, sick.
Is that too much? How about like? Is that okay with you?
I can read that.
Okay.
So, like I said, this is made for a calculus class. I don't have the actual math problems that went along with this. There were math problems, but those are lost to time. You don't really need them though, because
I just want to say I love this concept of I have to somehow do something related to calculus. How about a detective story where there's just calculus in it? Mm-hmm. Like, that sounds like the worst thing in the universe, but I actually love this.
Yeah, so this one's a little bit longer, and by a little bit I mean probably like 4 times as long.
Yeah,
but
I see as well. We're about half an hour into the recording.
Yeah, hopefully we won't have any mic problems while reading this, but I don't know, maybe we might.
Well, about 24 minutes. So yeah, we should finish this one, and probably we won't get to do Shasharash, but we'll do that next time.
Quick note about the main character's name. So it was going to be Quinton, but I misspelled it as Quinton, so Quinton. And I turned it in that way, so now it's canon. The main character's name is Quinton. So if you were curious, that's why.
I love the name Quinton. It fits him so much better than Quentin.
All right, so this is a 3-day arc.
Also, for the record, I would have spelled Quentin wrong too. So.
All right, I guess I can go ahead.
Yeah, take it away.
All right.
I made you narrate the longer one.
Day 1. My first day on the job, and I'm already assigned to the biggest case in town. I was expecting at least a little adjustment time. Mathematician to police detective is a pretty big jump. Maybe a little time to set up my desk and corkboard, to admire my name on the placard a bit. Quinton C. Lambert, Rockville County Police Department.
I'm sorry to interrupt you, but I want to mention that you actually set up a corkboard for this.
Oh yeah, I had a corkboard in my room, and I put index cards with calculus concepts, and I tied them together with a string. It was incredible. If we're not lazy, we'll put up a picture of that, but we would definitely.
I'm definitely not putting up a picture of that.
All right. But there's obviously no time to waste in this business. My new boss, Chief Morelli, apparently had a new lead last night about some money hidden in Carroll Park, and wanted to send investigators there as soon as possible. He didn't say it, but since he himself came along with as well, it was obvious he thought that the report was connected to the Rockvale Bandit that notoriously committed multiple thefts from the Rockvale Bank. Whatever was going on at Carroll Park, Chief Morelli, my fellow detective Duke Crabtree, and I all headed out there early this morning. I tried to make small talk on the way there, but nobody seemed too interested in the conversation. As a former mathematician with a strong love of calculus, I did have a tendency to go on about the things that some people didn't exactly seem to care about. I was about halfway through explaining the process of Euler's method and the incredible use it had.
Isn't it Euler's method?
It is Euler's method. I'm dumb.
Maybe Quinton doesn't know that.
Yeah. And the incredible use it had, the police car stopped, and we quickly got out at the entrance to the Carroll Park Trail.
Like he's only ever read about it. He hasn't heard anyone actually talk about it.
Yeah, maybe Quinton doesn't talk to too many people.
Maybe that's why his name is spelled wrong too. He doesn't know it's spelled wrong.
Yeah, Quinton's an interesting guy.
I like Quinton.
Well, we'll keep going. There was a map on the trail nearby where we parked, and, always thinking in math, I immediately noticed it bared a resemblance to the polar function r equals 4 plus 4 sine theta.
I thought you said there was no math in this.
Well, the actual problems are cut out, but some of the equations still remain. It wouldn't be old Quinton without his calculus.
That's true.
I asked Chief Morelli where we needed to search, and he said the intelligence he received was unclear, meaning we had to split up and search the entire path. The entire trail? I remember saying. How will we know how much each of us needs to cover with an undefined search area like that? Oh, I know! Since this trail can be modeled by the polar function r equals 4 plus 4 sine theta, I can find the length of the curve from 0 to 2 pi and find the whole distance. Glad I used to be a mathematician. Calculus was already useful, not even an hour into my new job. Chief Morelli sighed, likely of relief. I went to talk with Detective Crabtree while I went on with my lengthy calculations.
I love this.
And so then I do the math, but then we go to the next
Yeah,
part.
there's like some wiggly boys in the script wherever they're supposed to be math.
Yeah. Satisfied with my answer, I quickly went over to Morelli and Crabtree, who seemed to be having a conversation about a new Moyenne brand watch Morelli wanted to get, and told them I discovered the length of the trail. Dividing by 3, I saw that each of us had to cover about half a kilometer to get the whole trail. With that, we split up and searched our designated sections of the trail. After a while of searching, we came together again, yet none of us seemed to have uncovered anything.
Is this my line?
Yeah.
Maybe we should search the entire park for clues as well, instead of just the path itself.
Detective Crabtree suggested. Ecstatic, I proclaimed, "What an idea!" Luckily, I can determine the area enclosed by the polar curve just as easily as the length, so we can again divide the search area into equal parts. I think Morelli might have been starting to say something, but I was already deep into starting the calculus of the area. I was already deep into starting the calculation of the area we would need to cover. After finishing the problem, we all set off to work again, searching hard in our designated areas. After about 20 minutes of searching, I found an interesting symbol carved into the side of a tree. Pi over 2? The criminal must have thought of this park as a polar function as well. Full of energy, I quickly went into the point on the trail that corresponded with the theta value of pi over 2. It dug into the ground.
Was there math for that originally, or you just to know what that means?
I don't know. There wasn't a squiggly line there, so maybe it wasn't.
You look a little quiet. Slide a little closer. But don't touch the mic.
Hello? Okay, cool.
Don't touch it, though.
Sure enough, there's a strange suitcase there with a combination lock built into the front, that Morelli must have missed on his search. The problem was, I still didn't know what the combination to the case was. Then, I noticed a small piece of paper taped to the suitcase next to the combination entry section that read, dy over dx equals.
I love how that it's way too big for the text size.
Yeah, no, you can't see it, but all like the formulas and stuff are written in a different editor and just pasted in as images, so the lines just.
Oh, is that what that is? I thought just the formatting messed. Those are images.
Yeah, no, that's an image.
I didn't know that.
So it looked like I had to find the dy over dx value of the polar curve. Easy, I said, preparing for another problem.
I think he's wrong.
Well, this is easy for Quinton, not easy for mere mortals such as I.
Yeah,
and
that's
you.
fair.
Okay, so he does the math. So it looks like the combination was 0, 0, 0, 0? That's what the combination lock was already set to. Confused, I simply attempted to open the box, and it turned out the combination was already inputted. I shrugged, but then was immediately astonished by what was inside the box. There was at least $1,000 worth of money and valuables. I closed it again and started to get back to the police car to find Morelli and Crabtree, but it turned out they were actually right behind me. Startled, I said, "How long have you guys been standing there?"
Quite a while, actually.
Crabtree explained.
We didn't want to disturb you doing your math.
I went a little red in the face. Sometimes I get pretty engrossed in math, but I would have thought I would have at least heard them walking up on me.
Good find, Quinton.
Morelli said sternly.
If you could give me the case, I'll stay here and do a second search of the area. I have access to the park ranger cars, so you two can go ahead and take the police car back to base.
Crabtree and I nodded and began to walk back to where we parked the car. When we got there, and we were about to get in, I noticed a suspicious individual driving a red car, wearing all black and a hood covering his face. Pointing it out to Crabtree, he went over to ask a few questions, as the figure matched the descriptions of the Rockville Bandit.
The Rockville Bandit is famous for wearing all black and a hood that covers his face.
Yes, it's easily recognizable.
Yeah, see, he thought it was a disguise, but he's the only one that wears that, so it's just actually really obvious.
As soon as the man saw the police uniform, though, he jumped a bit in his seat and began to speed off. Thinking quickly, I reached into my uniform and pulled out my favorite investigation tool, the acceleration tracker gun.
Oh, yeah.
I quickly shot it at the vehicle, and a small transmitter with a blinking red light got stuck on the bumper of the car. I took note of the car's initial speed, 35 miles per hour. By this point, Crabtree was already in the back in the police car, motioning me.
He was in the back. He threw him in the trunk.
He's just jumped in the back.
All right, Quinton, you're driving.
He was already back in the police car and was motioning me to get in hurriedly. Scrambling to the passenger door, I jumped in as fast as I could and we took off after the car. We managed to follow the car for about an hour, but we lost it soon after. Luckily, we still had the acceleration graph given by the tracker. Crabtree drove trying to find the car for another 2 hours while I kept my eye on the acceleration graph. I've just been saying car a lot. Do I not know any other words for that? Oh well.
I think would you rather say, like, we pursued the automobile? Like, that sounds stupid.
Fair enough. I can't give my past self too hard a time for that.
I mean, that's what words were invented for.
Words are invented for using.
That's right.
Where was I? Crabtree drove around trying to find the car for another 2 hours. After that, while I kept my eyes on the acceleration graph, suddenly I noticed the transmission screen went static, meaning the car had likely stopped.
The car had stopped.
The car had stopped. Did I say that twice? This is a weird story.
It is kind of, yeah, it's a little...
Yeah, it's a mess, but it's my mess. I gotta own up to it.
Yeah, fair enough. I do like it, though. It adds charm.
This is for a math class, not an English class.
Right? I guarantee this was the best story anyone wrote for that math class.
Yeah, the best calculus mystery based on a detective named Quinton that he's ever seen.
Yeah. Unless someone, more recently has done a sequel. Oh, yeah, sorry, you can keep going.
Yeah. Okay, now that the car is stopped, we can find out how far the car went between where we are and its final point using the acceleration graph. It appears to model the function AT equals negative t squared over 100 plus t over 5 plus 4 between 0 and 3 hours, where AT is miles per hour.
Where did these come from?
Okay, so like I said, this is a project for calculus, and I was working in a group, right? So I said, okay, I'll write the story based on calculus, and I'll give you guys what problems I need in the story. And so they worked out the problems, and I just plopped them right into the story. So anywhere where I just he does the math. There was an actual math problem there.
So like it was all worked out and stuff.
Yeah. The problem is that sometimes my ideas weren't exactly conveyed quite right. So we get some very strange answers for some of these problems, which might become more apparent later on.
It's probably fine, right?
Yeah, it did. I mean, it worked out on the grade, but it is just funny. But yeah, that's where all the weird functions come from. Those weren't my doing, but they were just at my request.
Sort of. Okay, go ahead.
All right. So we can base calculations on that. First, we need to find the speed function of the car using the initial speed of 35 miles per hour, I told Crabtree. Math. Now that we have all that, all we need to do is take the integral from time 1 to time 3 to get how far the car is from where we stopped following it. I proclaimed loudly. All right, I said finally. What do we know that it is about 86.8 miles from here?
I think there's an abandoned factory around that distance from here.
Crabtree responded. Perfect, let's go, I exclaimed as we began to drive there. On the way, I remember Crabtree asked me,
Quinton! Sorry, I don't know why, but that line where you just... Okay.
Quinton!
Why do you use acceleration trackers? I'm pretty sure that you can find position trackers using GPS, and they seem a bit easier to use effectively.
I chuckled a bit. Position trackers? I laughed. Those things are over 5 times the price of an acceleration tracker. And you can see that they both would have led to the same result. I'm not made of money, you know.
But is there ever going to be a calculus problem comparing the cost of acceleration and price and position trackers?
Comparing the price? Yeah. One price diverges and the other converges. That's a calculus joke.
So it's like if Quinton buys his in bulk, they're cheaper. So he just has a warehouse full of acceleration trackers. Let me scroll.
How would you even make an acceleration tracker?
Maybe Quinton invented them.
Maybe.
That's why they're cheaper to him.
It's like really janky. It has just like an LED taped onto the end.
He says it's a small device, but it's like the size of like a toaster. It's really obvious.
Let's see. Crabtree didn't seem quite satisfied with my answer, but by that point we were already at the factory, and just as we had predicted, the car we were following was parked right outside. Crabtree pulled up to the police car behind some bushes he parked the police car behind some bushes to conceal it a bit, and we began to creep up to the front door of the factory. We did our best to keep quiet as the massive rusty front door squeaked open. Crabtree and I snuck inside and quickly saw the large open main area was totally empty, leaving a few doors on either side as the most interesting features. Thinking the bandit was probably hiding here somewhere, we silently agreed that Crabtree would look in the rooms on the right, and I would look in the rooms on the left.
I don't think Crabtree can do anything silently.
Yeah, he's not the most silent man. There wasn't anything particularly interesting where I investigated, mostly just papers and assorted tools, except for a somewhat large pool filled with water, right in the middle. Let me try that again. There wasn't anything particularly interesting where I investigated, mostly just papers and assorted tools, except for a somewhat large pool filled with water, right in the middle of the room. Something seemed off about it. I couldn't tell why it was there. It looked like the area between the curves f of x equals negative 1/3 x squared plus 4x minus. It's always when you don't expect it.
Of course it did, Quinton.
It's just like, oh, it's a secret room in an abandoned factory on the left. Oh, look at that curve that's modeled by g of x equals sine of 3/4 x.
Quinton is a hero. I love him so much. He just looks at this pool. Oh, that must be g of x equals sine of 3/4 x.
Yeah, this is another example of I was just like, okay, so he's got like a pool, right? And he's got to find the area of the pool. And they're like, okay, don't worry, we got it. We're going to use these two functions. And I'm like, what kind of pool? I think that ends up being like a curve on one side and like a squiggle on the other side.
You know, a pool.
It works though. We're fine. Where f of x and g of x are both measures in meters to me. In meters. So, yeah, and that looks like that to him. So I decided to find the area, just to see if it was a hint or anything. Math here. Well, that didn't seem to lead me anywhere. There was still no sign of Crabtree, who said he would meet me on my side when he was done searching.
I love that.
The best part is that there was literally like a full page of math there, and it's just like, I didn't do anything. Yeah, so who said he would meet me on my side when he was done searching? The rooms to the right. I got down on my knees and peered deep into the water. It seemed actually the bottom of the pool was created using semicircular cross sections. This confirmed to me that this wasn't some old thing left over from the factory's working days, since the bottom still seemed smooth and new. It surely would have been overgrown and cracked by now if it was from the time the rest of this factory was. With the knowledge of the volume of the pool, using semicircular cross sections, I decided I should just calculate that volume while waiting for Crabtree.
Of course you should.
Yep. Just after finding the answer, I felt a strong force push me from behind as I fell face first into the pool. In my brief moment of shock, I heard a scraping sound, and as I saw a metal cover get pulled over the top. I banged my fists on it, but it didn't do anything. I had to do something fast to stop from drowning. Feeling with my hands around the bottom of the pool, I felt what felt like a cork stopper. I pulled it, and to my relief, it looked like water began to drain out. But that relief started to fade as I noticed a small hole in the large metal sheet with a hose sticking out of it, pulling more water into the pool. I began to panic and turned to the thing I know best, calculus. I estimated the rate water was coming into the pool as proportional to the volume V, modeled by the rate dV over dt equals 3V, with dV over dt equals negative 5 being the rate that the water was leaving from the pool.
I know I haven't been actually talking about the math at all, but I really like that the input, which is just through a hose, is related to volume for some reason, and the out, which is not, is just a number.
It's one of those hoses that it just detects the amount of water in there. It's like, let's put some more in.
Do you want to explain how the hole, constantly pulls out 5, even if there's not 5 in the pool?
Maybe we're just thinking the wrong way. Maybe the hose is, sucking up the water, and the hole is, just pushing it in.
Okay, sure.
Yeah, the math still works out, so it's fine. But either way, using the volume I just calculated and the initial amount of water, I could do a related rates equation in my head to determine how long it would be until all the water was drained from the pool. So he does it. That relaxed me a bit, as by the time I was done, the water level was down to my waist and I could easily breathe. I waited a few more minutes, and just as I predicted, the water was all gone in about 3.5 minutes. You know what I bet happened? I bet that it was originally the other way around, but then he was like, oh wait, he would drown if that happened. So we had to flip them.
Also, I'd like, because a few usually means 3, right?
Mhm.
And he says it's gone in 3.5 minutes. So he did all that in 30 seconds. I think that works out, though.
Yeah, it is close enough. You mean he's Quinton? As the last of the water drained away, I noticed something at the bottom of the pool that had been obscured by the water before. It looked like my police badge, except the name had been worn off, likely by its time spent soaking in the pool. How had it gotten there? Had another detective been pushed in? Before my mind could go to any darker places, I heard footsteps from the room above me. I started banging my fist into the metal sheet again, and soon the sheet was being pulled back. In the room, where I thought I'd see Crabtree, I actually saw Chief Morelli. Chief, what are you doing here? I exclaimed.
Crabtree called me, said he might need backup.
Morelli explained.
What are you doing in there? And why is your uniform so wet?
I was pushed into this pool. Then that metal sheet got pulled over it, trapping me in, I said, gesturing to the empty pit behind where I was standing. Morelli skeptically raised an eyebrow. Well, it used to be a pool, but then I drained it, I explained further. I was trapped in here for about 3.5 minutes, if it helps, I added.
What were you doing in there? Did you try to pull back the metal sheet from below?
Morelli asked. Well, no, I responded timidly. I actually panicked and did some calculus to see how long it would take for the pool to be empty. Chief Morelli stifled a laugh. That's the Morelli laugh.
Well, don't worry, Quinton. I believe Crabtree and I caught the man who attacked you. Wait, did he attack? Did that ever happen?
Yeah, he got pushed into the pool.
Oh, right. I thought you were thinking of the money. In fact, Crabtree already took the guy we caught to base in the car you guys drove over here. I actually need to take that red car the suspect was driving back to the shop to see if we can figure out who it belongs to, as it was likely stolen. I can take you back to base in that.
Morelli told me. I agreed, and we both went back to the station in silence.
I got so excited about the volume of the pool, I forgot he was pushed in.
Yeah, no, he was in a life-threatening situation if he hadn't pulled that plug.
Right, my bad.
Sorry, Quinton.
It had been a long day, and it was near the end of my shift. When we got back, I wearily walked over to my office room and began setting up the desk the way I like it. I also started to work on the corkboard on the wall. Most detectives use it to display evidence and tie together everything with string. But I prefer not having to take things down after every case I solve. Instead, I usually make a calculus dependency chart about the elements of calculus I've had to use in my investigations. If it wasn't obvious, that was a requirement of the project, that we have a calculus dependency chart.
I like how you themed it, though.
After making sure to put down all the topics I'd used today, I sat down at my desk and began to type out this day one report. I always like to keep records of everything that happened, since you never know what might be useful later on. Well, that brings us to right now, at the end of my first day on the job. As exciting as all this is, I sure hope tomorrow is a bit easier. I was planning on solving equations, not all this field work. Day 2 of a 3-day saga. Alright. Today may have been the most interesting day of my life. Unlike yesterday, I wasn't assigned fieldwork today at all. Instead, I was supposed to analyze some tapes we had from a weather balloon that showed the same red car we were tracking yesterday driving around a large open field. Chief Morelli, who gave me the tapes, said he thought that the case was mostly wrapped up, but that maybe it could be useful. This was something I was ready for. In-depth analysis of movement in a two-dimensional plane over time. With that, Morelli and some other policemen and detectives went off to do some investigations and patrol the streets. I, however, got to work reviewing the tapes we had of the red car, seemingly driving around with no real purpose or direction. It was driving incredibly slowly, too. I'd seen it go far yesterday. Thinking in mathematics, as I usually do, I noticed the position of the car in the field can be modeled by the parametric equations x equals t to the fifth minus 4t to the third, and y equals t squared.
I like that you threw that in, I assume because they gave an equation where it was moving too slowly.
Yeah, it was moving very slow. I work with what I've gotten.
No, I genuinely really like that. Like, I seriously mean it.
And I'm not going to complain about the people because I'm not even doing any of the math for this. So I'll do exactly what they give me.
I really think it adds to the charm of just... Oh, it was just moving really slowly that day.
Yeah. Between the t equals 0 and t2, as the tapes were 2 hours long, I decided to run a few tests on it to see if I could uncover everything. First, I thought it might be useful to find the velocity of the car in terms of dy over dx.
Hang on, I've lost it.
No, you're good.
There.
Oh, no. Okay. With that knowledge, I could then find the average speed of the car, which, just in case, it might be useful to know the specs of the machine itself. Only 6.4 miles per hour? Why would someone be driving around at that speed? Driving seemed very deliberate, and the more I looked at it, it seemed very deliberate the more I looked at it, as if the driver was trying to go in a very specific pattern. Just out of curiosity, I wanted to calculate the total distance the car drove over those 2 hours, which can be done by using the length of the polar curve formula. I was so confused. Why would someone waste their time driving not even 13 miles in 2 hours? After I had finished my calculation, Detective Crabtree slammed open the door to my room.
Quinton!
He roared.
What are you doing?
I'm analyzing these tapes of the car we chased yesterday. Did something happen? I inquired, slightly nervous about Crabtree's answer.
Oh, that was Crabtree? I thought that was Morelli. My bad, can I read that one? Quinton, what are you doing? I'll edit that in.
Okay,
Sorry, I thought that was my bad.
fair enough.
Let me scroll. Okay. What?
Crabtree responded with a mix of confusion and anger.
Morelli told me he left you to guard the suspect we caught yesterday. He's escaped.
How could this be? I was sure Chief Morelli told me to just go over the tapes. He didn't mention anything about guarding the suspect. I began to stutter something, but Crabtree cut me off.
Everything we found yesterday, the suspect, the car, the money, they're all gone.
Crabtree said dejectedly.
We don't have any way to track him either.
Tracking, of course. You said he took the same car as yesterday, right? I inquired hopefully. Crabtree nodded, then I quickly grabbed out the acceleration monitor I'd used, hoping the tracker was still stuck to the car. Luckily, I saw the transmitter was still transmitting, and we were getting a graph. Noticing that we were getting a signal, Crabtree hurriedly said,
All right, let's get in the police car quickly.
I quickly shook my head, though. I did the calculations. His average speed is faster than ours.
How slow is our car? Sorry, how slow is our car?
I don't know why I'm going to guess that maybe I did the calculations yesterday, right? And that's the one I'm comparing to?
Oh, maybe, yeah.
Yeah, so it's not the 6 miles per hour. Because he said that he saw it went fast yesterday.
That's true. Okay, no, that checks out.
Like I said, it's been a while since we read this, so if we're going to interject something.
I just think this is hilarious. I love this story.
We won't be able to catch up to him just going in a random direction, I said, attempting to be as calm as possible. We need to outsmart him. See if we can find where he's going and cut him off. Checked the acceleration graph and quickly did some calculations on it to see the speed of the car could be modeled by y equals 20 minus sine 3x.
I love that you said he figured that out quickly. That's so funny.
He's just like, oh yeah, here you go.
That looks just like 20 minus sine of the 3x times x.
Why did this car always have a different speed function each time I checked it? It'd been about half an hour since he left, it looked like.
I can do this one.
Crabtree said from behind me, looking at the equation I'd written down on a piece of paper.
I could just do a quick right Riemann sum and we can get on our way. What did those words mean?
Before I could say anything, he was off to work.
All right, we got an answer. Let's go.
Crabtree proclaimed. Wait, I yelled. That answer has a large amount of error in it, and we can't calculate the exact amount. We need to be precise. We can't just let this guy get away.
Well, what do you recommend we do with the mathematics?
Crabtree said, annoyed, smiling from his compliment. I suggested we take the speed function as a Taylor series, then integrate that. That way it'd be easier than integrating the original function, as well as still have far less error. Crabtree seemed a little upset that I said his calculations were not specific enough, but let me go ahead with my series work, but make it speedy.
Make it speedy.
Yeah, see?
Yeah.
Man, Quinton just destroyed Crabtree with facts and logic. With that done, I now just had to calculate the 4-term Taylor polynomial, do the integral on that.
Do you still remember what these words mean?
Vaguely.
I don't.
That's no good if I had a margin of error, though. That's no good if I had no margin of error, though. Luckily, the series was alternating, so I didn't have to do Lagrange error. Even as a calculus lover, Lagrange error still gives me trouble. Instead, finding error was as simple as this. Do I still know how to do that? No.
I assumed that there is a picture of error equals 0, and that's it.
I do remember I really hated Lagrange error, though.
I like that you wrote that into Quinton.
Yeah. At this point, acceleration tractors stopped transmitting, likely indicating the car had stopped. With the total distance in mind, Crabtree and I frantically tried to find something within that distance range.
Sorry, I'm sorry to interrupt you. What was the idea for having Crabtree do that one?
I think I wanted to, because I needed to have multiple concepts, right? But the problem is that Riemann sums weren't very accurate. So Quentin wouldn't do that. Like, he wouldn't do something that's, like, bad math. So I just had to have someone else do it and then have him correct them.
Right.
Kind of dickishly, but, like, he thinks that it's not. So I think that's why I did it that way. I don't exactly know why Crabtree is, like, decided to become a math major now.
I think it's really funny. Like, Crabtree has hidden depths.
Crabtree is, the most valuable player on this team. All right, where was I?
At this point, our acceleration track.
Yeah, there we go. With a total distance in mind, Crabtree and I frantically tried to find something within that distance range away that the criminal might want to go to. We came up with 2 places: a car park near a shopping center and a small inn near a fishing pond. Crabtree and I agreed to split up again, with him heading to the inn and myself heading to the car park. We both jumped into separate police cars and sped to our locations in the quickest route possible. When I got to the car park, though, I was saddened to not be able to spot the red car anywhere. After a thorough second check, I called Crabtree on the radio and was surprised to hear Chief Morelli's voice from the other car. "Chief, what are you doing at the inn with Detective Crabtree?" I questioned. I could almost hear Chief Morelli's frown through the radio.
Frown. That can wait.
He responded firmly.
The real question is whether or not you have found the suspect over at that car park.
"Oh, no. I was hoping you found him over there," I said, the energy draining from my voice. There were a few seconds of silence.
So, we lost him?
Chief Morelli asked, with almost no emotion. I didn't say anything.
I can't believe it. After months, we finally capture the Rockvale bandit.
Chief Morelli thought aloud in disbelief.
And we lose him in just a day because of you.
I was shocked. "Me?" I stammered. "But I didn't..." Morelli cut me off. In a not quite angry, but very stern voice, he said,
You let him escape with the car and money when I told you to guard him. And you couldn't do the calculation to find out where he went. Plus, if you had just used a position tracker instead of an acceleration one, we would be able to tell exactly where he was right now. I'm sorry, I shouldn't have put you on such a hard case your first day. We'll switch you to something easier back when you get back to base.
"But you never told me to keep the suspect under watch. And I'm sure my use of Taylor polynomials was correct," I cried out.
Look,
Chief Morelli said, obviously annoyed.
You are off the case. Period. We'll switch you to another one when you get back. I think it's your lunch break. Go ahead and grab some food while you're out by the car park.
With that, Chief Morelli ended the communication. I was absolutely crushed.
Sorry, has my Morelli been remotely consistent?
I'm gonna go with yes.
Wow, I thought you said no.
We're gonna find out later.
Yeah, we will. Sorry, I'm so sorry to keep interrupting you. Please go ahead.
No, it's fine. If you just read a math story all the way through, it doesn't quite... I wanted to prove that calculus was important to the world of detectives, but all I had done was complicate things. Chief Morelli was right about it being my lunch hour, though, and I saw an ice cream parlor across the street from where I was parked. I wasn't very hungry, but decided to give it a chance, so I hopped out of the police car and began to walk to the shop. When I got there, I asked for a simple cup of vanilla and then sat down. When they gave it to me, I was very confused, though.
This is my favorite math problem.
The cup was a strange stretched cone shape. It almost looked like a plate. I mean, they'd only put ice cream around the side of the cup, not the middle. I saw a sign pinned next to the cash register that had the amounts of ice cream in each size cup in cubic centimeters.
As you do.
The size, I said the size I ordered should have about 75 cubic centimeters in it. Looking at my cup, I wasn't sure that it measured up to that amount. I also noticed that it can be modeled by the area between the curves y equals the cube root of x and y equals x over 4 when rotated about the y-axis to create a solid. Calculus usually helps me cheer up, so I decided to find the volume and see if I was being cheated.
Can you explain the lore on these numbers?
Okay, so we had to do a problem that was involving you rotate a plane around an axis to create a solid. And I was like, okay, he can get like just like a cup of ice cream and just rotate it. Or no, I was looking for a cone of ice cream, right? So you get like a triangle and you rotate it around the axis. Done. But my group mates, for some reason, gave me just like a very low diagonal and then it's like a tiny curve on top of that. So when it rotated, it basically made like, on one side it was like a pointed arrow, but like flat, and then the other side was like a curved thing that dipped down to the middle. It didn't look anything like an ice cream cone at all. But like I said, I mean, they're literally the ones doing all the math, so I wasn't going to like just tell them to do it again. So I just put it in. He has some weird plate-shaped cone.
How you had to justify all that in the story.
Yeah. And this doesn't even have to do with anything. This is just an ice
That's the
cream
fair part.
cone.
It's like this is like one of the hardest problems in it. It has nothing to do with anything. we talk about this as Quinton's darkest moment.
Mm-hmm. Oh, man. All right. Since 512 pi over 21 is approximately 76.6, which is greater than 75, I guess that I wasn't being cheated. I still wasn't hungry, but the calculus did make me feel better. I glanced down at my ice cream and saw it was starting to melt. I wonder how long it would take to melt fully. Using a thermometer to measure its current temperature, I found that it was negative 8 degrees Celsius. And I knew that it took me about 1 minute to do the volume problem. So using the temperature on the thermostat of the building, 23 degrees calculus. So yeah, using the temperature on the thermostat of the building, 23 degrees Celsius, and guessing that the melting point of ice cream was about 8 degrees Celsius, I could almost figure out how long it would take to melt using Newton's law of cooling. I just needed the initial temperature. Strangely, when I asked an employee to let me into the freezer so I could do Newton's law of cooling on my ice cream, they denied me entry. But I did convince the cashier to go check with a generous tip. They told me the initial ice cream temperature was negative 18 degrees, so I could finally get to calculating.
How much do you think he tipped?
I don't know how much he thinks is a generous number. I don't know if he has any concept of anything.
512 pi over $76 or something.
$76 for an ice cream cone?
No. Some amount times pi over something squared.
Oh yeah, he tipped some stupid amount.
If you investigate that, you'll see it's actually the square root of such and such.
With that done, I knew that after ordering it, I had approximately 3.5 minutes to eat it before melting. Sadly, as I looked down at my ice cream, I realized it had actually been 4 minutes since I ordered it.
Quinton's darkest hour.
I sighed and put my head in my hands. Seems like I couldn't do anything right. I tossed the warm, melted mess and walked outside. Then, just as I was about to go back to the police car, someone flagged me down. Gosh, I love this stupid ice cream scene.
That scene is so good. Like we said, it's Quinton's darkest hour. That's the storm before the calm.
Like, this is a story. I was writing it about calculus and how it could be useful, but I was really just like making fun of it.
It is. It's great.
So, I mean, it still got a good grade at the end, so I'm glad my teacher had a sense of humor, but it's just kind of like really beating this poor guy.
Who should read this line?
I don't know. You can read it. I've read
Codwell
most
can
of
do
it.
it.
Codwell could do it.
Okay, Codwell can do this.
Oh, thank goodness. It's a policeman.
Somebody in a suit said, relieved.
I work at the bank right down the street. I think the Rockville Bandit has written some sort of program to drain money from random accounts. We have no way to stop it.
I gave a defeated frown. I don't think I'll be able to help. The Rockville Bandit himself is way above my level. I sighed. I can call up some other people who might be able to handle it, though.
No, please, give it a shot. The program seems to be striking with mathematical precision. We need somebody to see if there is some sort of pattern the system is striking in.
I heard the words mathematical and pattern and my whole body immediately perked up. This was exactly what I'd been trained to do. All right, show me to the bank, I proclaimed stoically. The banker broke into a big smile and started running one direction, motioning me to follow. I ran after, reinvigorated. This was my chance to prove myself. Maybe the bank case would lead to uncovering the identity of the bandit. When we got there, the manager informed me that the money had been being taken out of accounts the whole morning at regular intervals, and less seemed to be disappearing each time. He wanted to know if there was some sort of pattern to these disappearances of money. I cracked my knuckles and looked at the screen the manager had pulled up at his computer. It showed the exact amount of money being taken every interval. It looked familiar to me as soon as I saw it. Regular intervals and decreasing at a specific rate over time? This is a series, I proclaimed, to nobody in particular. It looked like it was modeled by the function oh god. M equals the summation n equals 0 to infinity 7 to the n plus 1 over 8 to the n plus 2 plus 1.
I love Quinton just seeing that.
Where M equals money lost in hundreds of dollars. I told the manager of the series, and then immediately asked if I... Let me try that again. I told the manager of the series, and they immediately asked if I could tell how much money was stolen over the course of time by the virus. They made it clear, though, they wanted to be absolutely sure whether this series converged or diverged. And they needed to know whether the virus would be able to continue taking money infinitely as time went on, or if it was bounded by a specific value. I understand needing absolute certainty. That's what mathematics is all about, I said, trying to appear both serious and understanding. What I'll do is I'll check if it converges 3 times with different methods. If they all agree, then we can be entirely sure. The bank manager agreed to this, and so I got started with my first test, the limit comparison test. Since the limit comparison test resulted in a positive real number, it proves that the end behavior of the limit is the same as the function I compared it to, which converges due to it being geometric in nature, and having the ratio of less than 1.
Of course.
Next, I decided to do the ratio test to make sure the result was the same. This seemed to agree with the limit comparison test, so I only need to do one more test. Due to the series being geometric in nature, as well as providing in the limit comparison that it behaved the same as 1, I could do a traditional geometric series test to not only further prove it converged, but also see what it converged to. We're getting closer to the end, and now I have to throw all of the math stuff in here.
Is this where you panicked and we're like, oh, the limit conversion test, it's like ratio test.
It's like, oh crap, there's like a series as a unit that I forgot about. Put it all here.
The classic bank scene. This is like the this is the rise after the his low point was ice cream, and this is he's getting a second wind.
Right. Well, I couldn't quite stop the virus from taking back the bank's money. They at least knew how much it was going to lose. $86.15? Seemed like such a specific number. $86.15. Why would a thief even bother to take an amount of money that small? Luckily, this relatively tiny amount was much easier for the bank to deal with than the threat of constantly increasing drain that would have come from a diverging function. After I had helped all I could at the bank and left the building, the number seemed to keep bouncing around in my head. It kept bouncing until I passed by a jewelry store on the way back to the police car. One item in the window had that exact price tag. It was a watch. A Moyenne brand watch, in fact. The exact same watch that Chief Morelli said he wanted yesterday at Carroll Park. Dun, dun, dun.
There.
I walked into the police station, the most confident I'd been in my entire life. Chief Morelli was standing in the front office.
No good. Quinton is back.
Morelli stated dryly.
About that case we're switching you to.
I cut him off. Why'd you do it, Morelli? I asked sternly.
Excuse me?
He responded, seemingly confused. Why'd you take the money? Why are you the Rockvale bandit? He began to sputter something about crazy accusations.
Crazy accusations.
But I wasn't having it. I began the monologue I had been planning the entire drive back from the bank. Don't try and hide it, Morelli. You've shown signs of it since the moment I first saw you. I just didn't notice. Back in Carroll Park, you met me at the exact part of the trail that the money was hidden at, despite not saying anything about it. Then I met you at a warehouse, but you drove the red car back to base for inspection. You would have had to show up there in a car to get there in the amount of time that I calculated while in the pool. But the only 2 cars there were the police car Crabtree and I took, and the bandit's red one, which you drove back. Then you distracted me with random footage, of you driving in a field, guessing correctly that solving parametric functions would take my focus off both the car and the money. The driving seemed slow because you purposely slowed down the footage to keep me occupied for longer. So you knew you could get a safe distance away before you told Crabtree to alert me. Finally, I knew my Taylor series calculations were correct, and it turned out that you were at one of the places I knew the bandit had to be hiding, the inn. To top everything off, the amount of money stolen from the bank today was exactly how much you needed to buy the new watch you said you wanted in the park yesterday.
Can I say, okay, 1, I love that your stupid calculus detective story has a twist ending. 2, I love that you justified why the car was so slow.
We did it, boys!
I honestly forgot you had done that when I brought it up.
Most stuff is justified there, except for Crabtree doing math. I guess that wasn't justified.
Mm-hmm.
Chief Morelli was flabbergasted. I grinned, knowing I had to be right.
Well, you are more observant than I thought.
Morelli began.
I assigned you to this case because I thought you had no chance, but you proved otherwise. Congratulations.
He grinned, an evil smile.
You still have no solid evidence, though. The money, suitcase, and car are all gone.
I had hoped he would say that. I think I know exactly where they are, I said calmly. You hid them on the right side of the abandoned factory. I could visibly see Morelli's smile drop. In fact, I think we could find quite a bit more there, judging by how new the pool I was pushed into was, comparing to the rest of the factory, and by how I found a police badge in there. I would bet it's your own personal pool, bought with the money you've stolen from this town. I would also say you tried to pay off Detective Crabtree when he saw you, which is why he recommended we go with the inaccurate Riemann sum while trying to find you. I did explain it! I did not remember that!
Oh my god! You're a hero, dude!
That estimate would have been so far off that it isn't likely we would have been anywhere close. He insisted on going to the inn so that I wouldn't find you, and then he was able to tell you how close I was to catching you. That's when you decided to change strategy altogether and assign me to a different case.
Dude, I love this.
Morelli's jaw was hanging open. He thought he'd already gotten away with it, but I had come out of nowhere and stopped him. He didn't admit anything officially, but it was obvious that I had found him out.
How did...
He began to ask, totally lost. Calculus, I responded, smiling. With that, put a pair of handcuffs on him and directed him to a holding cell before I began to call lawyers to get things settled out. Day 3. After my accusation of Morelli, the town was abuzz. After months of nothing, the new detective solves everything in 2 days. The mayor offered to promote me to chief while Morelli was on trial, but I preferred... Try that again. The mayor offered to promote me to chief while Morelli was on trial, but I preferred just being Detective Quinton. After the crazy happenings of yesterday, I still didn't have time to add my dependency corkboard or fill this report fully, so I'm taking the time to do it now. We can't really get much done without a chief of police anyways. My dependency corkboard is filling out nicely, so I'll be sure to attach a picture of it to the bottom of this page. With that done, I suppose my first case is closed. This is Detective Quinton C. Lambert, recording officially that my first case, the case of the Rockvale Bandit, is done until further notice. Well, that's that.
I love that story, my dude.
It kind of went on long, but that's because I had to fit, whatever math was in there.
Also, you had to fix your microphone.
Also, we had to... Oh my gosh, it's weird. It's bad.
We'll see how this comes out. I think it'll be okay, honestly.
Yeah,
it might not be as good as our previous episode, but it'll be better than the first.
Yeah, that's fair enough. No one's gonna watch this far anyways. This is like a secret.
Oh yeah, that's true. Do you have any thoughts on that? I mean, I genuinely, I love that story. Like how, like you were saying, like you pretty much make fun of Quinton the whole time, but he does come through in the end, and he actually pulls it off.
Yeah, I mean, this was kind of. I mean, it was long, and there was lots of like weird wording and stuff in it because I mean, it wasn't necessarily for like an English class, but it got the job done, and I think it's a lot more memorable to have like a detective story with a twist than just like another PowerPoint presentation that just shows like slide.
Yeah, when you I don't know if you told me or if I read this, but when you told me that there was a twist in this, like it blew my mind. Like, what? Why did you try so hard on this? I love it.
Like, I mean, it's not really a twist. I mean, it's like there were 3 characters.
Well, if I'm honest, what I would expect in anyone else's stupid detective calculus story, they get to the bandit, they find him, and then they arrest the bandit. It's not like the bandit was actually so-and-so. It's just they arrest the bandit. Like, we got the guy.
Actually, that's a good point. Like, he didn't need to be a character, but it was just like, what if we just did this anyways?
I love it. I mean, you're right, knowing that it was going to be a named character. There's 2 other named characters it could be, but I wouldn't expect it to be a named character at all. I was like, here's the bandit. You got him.
It also worked out really nicely that since everything was kind of bad, the weird foreshadowing was there, but you didn't notice it was there because you just thought it was kind of weird.
Like, we were making fun of the weird math, and then somehow you made it all work with the you slowed down the footage so that it would take me longer to watch it. And you told Detective Crabtree to use a Raven song. I really love how you worked all that junk in.
Gosh, yeah. I'm more proud of this than I should be.
I love this story.
I'm trying to think of. I think this probably actually took longer to do than if I had just done one of the other projects.
Oh, definitely.
But it was way more fun, and it's actually something I'll remember.
Forever now that we've made it into this episode of the podcast.
Yeah, it's immortalized in Two Idiots history.
Yeah. I don't know. I feel like I could keep talking about that, but I don't know what to say other than I really like how stupid it is.
Yeah, I mean, I don't have too much DevCom on there. Most of it just went into the story. The only thing that you're missing is, physically written out solutions to these problems, and then the corkboard with all the calculus problems connected to each other in string.
If we still have a picture of that, I might edit that in.
Well, I think I still have it up, actually.
Okay,
I wrote this years ago, and I just haven't bothered to take down the corkboard yet.
Because we usually do one picture per podcast, right? Like in the one, it was the picture of the night dude riding on the toy rabbit, and then I think the next one had one.
Yeah, and I did get a good grade on this project. We got I think it was a 98 on it.
You deserved it.
And I don't know if any of the math is actually right or not. I don't think many of the solutions were still in there.
Yeah.
I just assume they're probably pretty good.
I do love, though, that some of the equations are still in there. So just the idea of Quinton looking at something, that looks like the series from n equals 1 to infinity of such and such over z squared. Yeah, I love that.
Yeah, so I don't know. That was my attempt at walking a fine line between making fun of calculus and actually showing it being useful.
Do you think there's any potential for Quinton being in another story?
I think he could work well as another character. I think if he was a real story instead of a calculus story, maybe you would turn down some of the calculus details he describes, right? But it is very comical, like you said, just to have him pop in an equation, right?
Yeah.
But just maybe, instead of saying I'll solve it 3 ways, maybe you would just say he'll solve it 3 ways, and then he just solves it 3 ways using the 3 things, but he won't go into detail about it.
Right. I think he should go into detail, but the story doesn't tell you what he did. He'll be like, I'll solve this series using the geometric ratio, and just everyone's like, okay, and then you say, and then he does it, and then he comes back with the answer. Right.
So it is a character that would be fun to bring back, but he'd need a bit of reworking.
I would love to see a sequel with more Quinton, honestly. And also, speaking of sequels, the heroes, Captain Obvious and Commander Sarcasm definitely can show up again. As I mentioned, we have a whole season's worth of this cartoon planned. It's just we only have 2 episodes properly planned. Sometime I am thinking about maybe actually writing the first episode. What do you think about that?
I'd honestly love to see it. Like we said, that's the one we kind of have a plan for. All the middle episodes are just kind of the antics episodes, right?
Yeah.
And you can have however many you want of those.
So the idea is there's other heroes and villains floating around. Laser Larry obviously is a big time hero.
Mm-hmm.
Dr. Arm is a supervillain in the universe and stuff. So that, like they would be fighting off in the background, and
It would focus on these two just like schmucks who just like talk back and forth to each other and try and very poorly thwart schemes that don't really exist.
yeah, like so Carl would go to like the store, and the store is being robbed. He's like, "Ugh," and he just goes to the next store instead. Like he doesn't try to stop it.
Yeah.
Um.
Or maybe like he'd be trying to make his breakfast and then he's just like bothered by Captain Obvious and he's like, I should do something about this, and then he like builds some sort of device to like try and fix it, but he's not like a mad scientist or anything. He's just like trying to build something. It's like it kind of works, but like kind of not. That's kind of the vibe that should go for.
Or he's out at the store that's not being robbed, and like he sees Captain Obvious there, so he goes around and he's like, okay, what's Captain Obvious gonna buy? I'm gonna get all of it before him, so he can't buy the thing he wants, And he just tries to annoy him all day.
Yeah, that would be good. I think Quinton, it would be harder to like make a follow up or like a prequel or whatever to this.
Mm-hmm.
I think you kind of need to just take it in a new direction.
Also, do you think it would be a sequel or a prequel or just like a sort of Quinton AU? Like this story necessarily wouldn't be canon to the next one. It'd be like a different Quinton, but the same personality.
I think it would kind of just be transplanting Quinton, and I do like the ideas of like, the name Morelli's kind of cool. The name
It is.
I think I stole the name Rockvale from somewhere.
It sounds like Greenvale from Deadly Premonition, but with rock.
Oh, that's probably what I did, yeah. So, probably just transplant Quinton and, like, his main personality, just drop him in somewhere else. I think detective but obsessed with math works pretty well.
Would he still be the star, do you think, or would he be sort of a more background character?
That's a good question. It depends on the type of novel you'd be writing, right? Because you could write, like, another detective mystery, and I think it could work with Quinton. But he would also make a great backup character as, like, in a story where the police are just somewhere. If you wanted to have a police character that's more memorable than just, like...
Do you think...
I'm
sorry to interrupt. Do you think Quinton exists in the Carl Snyder universe? Like, is he, like, the head of police in, like, his superpower is super math?
I think you could say that. I think it's fair to just draw those together.
All right. We're deciding this is Two Idiots canon. Quinton exists in the same universe as Captain Obvious and Commander Sarcasm.
Yeah, and I think it does take a superpower to do math everywhere.
Well, I think in your story he doesn't have a superpower, but he does have the superpower in the everyone has a superpower universe.
Right. But it's still like a compulsory one, though. He like has to do it.
Yeah. Do you think he could have stopped the robot?
Well, no, because robots are already made of math.
That's true.
So making the robot really good at math, I don't think would have done too much.
Suddenly I know what a function is. Yeah, I like Quinton. He's a good guy. How about Duke Crabtree?
Duke Crabtree I straight stole from somewhere. I just needed like a second detective. Duke Crabtree's just from the Ambition game.
What's that?
That's a bad Flash game that's played on Retsu Prey in about the time that I was making this.
So you just lifted his name.
Yeah.
I like it. I did that with Mike Dawson from Darkseid. I just put Mike Dawson in something. I couldn't be bothered to think of a name.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, this was for high school calculus, so it's a little bit farther back than when Heroes was written. So
yeah, Heroes was like last year or 2 years ago.
I like to think I've improved, especially in like the wording. Right, a lot of that it was kind of weird.
I mean, that's fair enough. It is not for an English class.
Right, but I think the plot can be pretty transfixed somewhere, right?
And I certainly do not mean to make fun of. I like the interesting word choice because at the end of the day, Quinton is writing this.
That is actually true, yeah. In canon, this is his journal.
It all works. You've justified all of it. I mean that,
I legitimately forgot about that last part about why Crabtree did the function.
That is so funny. I had no idea. It's starting to get late. We should probably wrap things up so we can actually save this episode.
All right. Any final thoughts?
Nope, I never have any thoughts.
All right. Like as always, we're going to be with you for regular episodes, but stay tuned for a special next year anniversary as well.
Right. This was a special anniversary episode, so I hope you enjoyed it.
All right. And here's to another year. How many years?
Too many.
Too many.
Bye.
Bye.
Thank you for listening.